Welcome to Retro Training Services Asbestos Contractor Supervisor Refresher Course. Let's start with general background information. Physical characteristics. Asbestos is the common name for a group of minerals with similar properties. It is mined from the earth like other minerals. Asbestos is unique in that it does not break up into dust particles. Rather, it divides into millions of fibers. Most of these fibers are so small that they cannot be seen by the naked eye. Types of asbestos. Asbestos is found commercially in three common varieties: chrysotile, amosite, and chrysotolite. All three have a variety of properties that make them valuable in the commercial and construction industries. The most important property is the ability of asbestos to resist heat and cold. In fact, asbestos has been used in more than 3,000 commercial products. The two most common groups are serpentine asbestos, in which chrysotile or white asbestos can be found, and amphibole asbestos, in which amosite or brown asbestos and chrysotolite, blue asbestos, can be found. Here's a brief history of asbestos use. The asbestos industry started during the 1870s when the first commercial chrysotile mine opened in Quebec, Canada. Chrysotolite was the first form of asbestos mined in South Africa during the 1890s. Amosite was also mined in Africa beginning in 1916. Asbestos was used as insulation from 1870 to 1900. Its use became more common with the development of the steam engine. After 1900, asbestos-containing material, also known as ACM, was used on steam pipes and boilers of ships. Until the early 1940s, most ACM in the United States contained chrysotile from Canada. The increased need for asbestos during World War II caused amosite to become widely used in American shipyards. Prior to and after World War II, many building codes required the use of asbestos fireproofing to prevent the collapse of steel structures during fires. After World War II, the use of asbestos expanded rapidly. Although the military demand for asbestos declined, the demand for spray-applied asbestos fireproofing materials in buildings greatly increased. The fireproofing materials were used for both acoustical and decorative purposes. Estimates indicate that more than half of the large multi-story buildings constructed from 1950 to 1970 contained some form of sprayed ACM. Asbestos use in the United States began to decline in the 1970s due to the combined effect of the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA's, ban on the use of spray-applied ACM and a general building recession. Let's look at some common uses of asbestos. Asbestos was widely used because it was readily available, low in cost, and had many useful properties. It has been used in hundreds of products, particularly within the construction industry, because of its unique properties like fire resistance, high tensile strength, poor conduction of heat, cold, and electricity, poor conduction of sound and condensation, resistance to chemical attack. One of the most common uses of chrysotile asbestos was as fireproofing material. It can also be found in products like surfacing material, paints and coatings, concrete-like products, roofing felts, and flooring tile and sheet goods. This is a map showing the known locations of asbestos rock in the United States. Asbestos conditions. The EPA has defined friable and non-friable asbestos-containing material in the National Emission Standard for Hazardous Air Pollution, or NESHAP. Friable refers to products that can be crumbled, crushed, or reduced to powder by hand pressure. Non-friable refers to products that, when dry, cannot be crumbled, crushed, or reduced to powder by hand pressure. These terms are not categories of asbestos, rather conditions. The EPA has also put asbestos materials into categories. RACM, also known as regulated asbestos-containing material, is all friable materials and any non-friable materials that have, will, or might become friable in the course of demolition or renovation. Category 1 non-friable includes but is not limited to tar, vinyl-based flooring, and roofing products, gaskets, and mastics. Category 2 non-friable includes but is not limited to products that when dry cannot be crumbled, crushed, or reduced to powder by hand pressure. For example, cement asbestos products. Health effects of asbestos. The health problems from exposure to asbestos are well documented. As a result, the government has almost totally banned the use of asbestos, one of the cheapest and best building materials in the United States. In addition, related legal problems make most of the uses of ACM impractical. Exposure to asbestos fibers can cause a variety of diseases. The three major respiratory diseases related to asbestos are asbestosis, lung cancer, and mesothelioma. During the early 1970s, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, tried to respond to the health and legal problems by issuing regulations and guidelines to limit industrial exposure to asbestos fibers. During the late 1970s and early 1980s, the EPA added guidelines and requirements to cover occupants in schools and government buildings. Prior to that time, voluntary standards prepared by the American Conference of Governmental Industrial Hygienists recommended limiting exposure to industry. The first standards, called threshold limit values, were established in the 1930s. The potential health effects of asbestos can be very serious. Asbestos is a known carcinogen, meaning it can cause cancer. Fibers usually get into the body through the nose and mouth while breathing, which is why wearing proper protective gear is very important. We will cover more about this later. Most of the diseases caused by asbestos have a long latency period and may be asymptomatic, meaning that a person who has been exposed to asbestos may go for up to 30 years without showing any symptoms of a possible disease. Many debilitating illnesses and even death can result from exposure to asbestos. Asbestos is silent, odorless, and invisible. And exposure is cumulative and progressive, meaning that small amounts of exposure over the course of many years can be as hazardous as large amounts of exposure in the short term.